This story is entirely fictional. All characters are fictional. AI-assisted narration. AI-generated thumbnails. On the 14th of October, I logged into the property management account I had maintained for 9 years, changed the deposit routing on all 4 units at 2219 North Ash Street, and transferred the balance, $11,340, to a new account in my name only. Then I went to make dinner. I didn't call my brother. I didn't send an email. I didn't announce what I was doing or explain my reasoning or ask for permission. I made pasta with a jar of marinara that had been in my cabinet since August, and I ate it at my kitchen table in my apartment in the South Perry neighborhood of Spokane, and I looked out at the October dark and felt something I had not felt in 9 years. Finished. Not angry. Not vindicated. Just done. I sat there for a long time after the plate was empty, watching the headlights of cars move past on the street below. A neighbor's dog barked once and went quiet. The building across the way had one lit window, a blue television light, shifting. I did not reach for my phone. I did not draft an explanation in my head. I ate the last of the pasta cold, at the counter, standing up, and then I washed the bowl and went to bed. I had not told anyone what I was going to do. Not Barbara. Not my friend Sasha, who knew more about my family than anyone. I had not even told myself, not in the way that counts, the way where you sit down and make a list of reasons and convince yourself it's right. I had just done it. That, too, felt like something. Before I tell you what happened in February, have you ever spent years doing all the work in a shared arrangement while the other person collected the benefits? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading every single one. My name is Tova Rice. I am 33 years old. My grandmother, Millie Rice, died in the spring of 2015 and left her rental property at 2219 North Ash Street in Spokane to me and my brother Craig in equal shares. 4 units. 2-story brick building, 1940s construction, good bones, high maintenance in the way that old buildings are high maintenance, meaning constantly. Craig was 36 then. I was 24. He lived in Phoenix. He had lived in Phoenix since 2009, and the distance was not accidental. Craig had left Spokane with intention, the way someone leaves a room mid-argument. He and our grandmother had not been close. He had attended the funeral because he was in the will, which he had not known until the attorney called him, and which had surprised him in a way he did not bother to hide. I had been close with Millie. I had helped her manage the property for 3 years before she died, dropping off repair contractors, fielding tenant questions, running to the hardware store on Sprague Avenue for whatever she needed. It was not formal employment. It was what you do when someone you love is getting older, and the building they've owned for 30 years is getting older with them, and someone needs to notice. When she left it to both of us, I understood why. He was her grandson. She was fair to a fault, even across distances. What I did not understand was what 9 years of managing a 4-unit rental property actually means when you do it alone. The first year was straightforward. Craig and I agreed over email because he didn't call that I would handle day-to-day management and we would split the income 50-50 after expenses. He provided his bank account information for the transfers. I set up a property management account with a Spokane-based service called Cascade Property Partners, arranged the lease agreements for all 4 existing tenants, and began keeping records in a spreadsheet that I updated every month. Income, expenses, maintenance costs, net. Craig reviewed exactly none of it. In the first year, I called him 4 times with questions that required his input as a co-owner. He answered twice. The other 2 times, I made the decisions myself and sent him an email summary that he did not respond to. In the second year, I called him twice. He answered once. By the 3rd year, I had stopped calling. The income ran through our shared account. I paid expenses, calculated the split, and transferred his half to the Phoenix account. Every month, without fail. He received, depending on the year, between $7,000 and $14,000 annually for owning half of a building he had not set foot in since 2016. Our accountant, a woman named Barbara Schultz who had an office on Division Street, prepared the joint income tax filing each year. I provided the records. I provided all of them every year in a folder I organized myself. Barbara filed. Craig signed his copy electronically. He never once called Barbara directly. This went on for 9 years. 9 years of lease agreements signed by me. 9 years of maintenance calls at 7 a.m. on Saturday mornings, handled by me. 9 years of tenant disputes and plumbing emergencies, and the time in 2019 when Unit 3 had a mold situation that required 3 weeks of coordination with a remediation contractor and a public health inspector, managed by me. 9 years of tax filings, prepared and submitted by our shared accountant based on the income records I kept in a spreadsheet I built from scratch. 9 years. In February, Craig filed his own return. He listed himself as sole owner of the rental income. All of it. The thing that broke the arrangement was not a confrontation. It was a tenant. His name was Felix Drum. He moved into Unit 2 in January of the year I turned 33, and he was what property managers call a problem tenant in the same spirit that a hurricane is a weather event, technically accurate and dramatically insufficient. Felix Drum had a dog despite the no-pet clause in his lease. He had the dog's cousin, apparently, also residing in the unit. He paid rent 4 to 9 days late every month, always with a different explanation, always politely, always in full. He played music at a volume that generated 3 written complaints from Unit 1 and 1 from Unit 4, and once, memorably, a knock from the couple across the street. I spent 16 weeks managing the Felix Drum situation. I documented every violation. I sent formal notices on the correct timeline. I consulted with a tenants' rights attorney on Division Street to make sure my process was clean. I negotiated a lease termination agreement in April that got him out of Unit 2 without a court filing, which saved approximately $2,400 in legal fees and 8 weeks of timeline. Craig did not know Felix Drum existed until I sent the end-of-year summary in December. His response, his first email to me in 4 months, was, "Thanks for handling that." I read that email 3 times. I looked out my apartment window at the South Perry Street below. I thought about 16 weeks of certified letters and documented violations, and an attorney consultation I had paid for out of my personal account because it happened mid-month and the expense fund was short. Thanks for handling that. Something in me made a decision I hadn't consciously reached yet. A structural decision. The kind that happens below the waterline before the surface of you knows about it. 2 weeks later, I changed the deposit routing on all 4 units at 2219 North Ash Street. Here is what I want you to understand about October. I was not acting from the place anger would have come from. I was not trying to steal anything. I was not being impulsive. I was doing what I should have done 4 years earlier, and hadn't because I kept telling myself the arrangement was functional, that Craig was harmless, that his passivity was not the same as exploitation, even when it felt indistinguishable from it. The new account was in my name. It held only rental income. I kept records of every deposit, every expense paid from it, every transfer, the same records I had always kept, the same spreadsheet, the same discipline. The difference was 1 line in my October notes. Deposit routing updated. Shared account closed. I did not send Craig the October statement. I did not send him the November statement. I did not send him December. I waited to see what he would do. That is the honest answer. I had spent 9 years watching what Craig did when confronted with a decision, and the answer was always the same. Nothing, then a delayed email, then nothing again. I expected nothing in October, nothing in November, nothing in December. 3 months of silence. I had deposited December's rents. I had filed December's maintenance notes. I had updated the spreadsheet. I had done, in other words, exactly what I had always done, except the money was now in a different account with only my name on it. What I did not expect was February. The smell of my accountant Barbara's office is old paper and the particular sweetness of the lavender hand sanitizer she keeps on the corner of her desk. I have been going there every February for 9 years, and I know that smell the way you know the smell of any place that marks time for you. I sat down across from her on a Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., and she looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "Tova, I need to tell you something before we start." She had received a call from the IRS. Not a routine inquiry. An audit notice. Specifically, a discrepancy flag generated when 2 separate tax returns for the same property, 2219 North Ash Street, Spokane, Washington, were filed claiming ownership of the same rental income. Craig had filed his own return. In January. Without Barbara. Without me. with a tax preparer in Phoenix whose name I did not recognize. He had listed himself as sole owner of the rental income from all 4 units for the entire year. All of it. Barbara looked at me. He claimed 100% of the income. I see. Including the months when you had already moved the deposits. I know, Tova. She took her glasses off. You have 9 years of records. I have 9 years of records. She put her glasses back on. Then you're going to be fine. The IRS audit was conducted by a field agent named Ms. Osei. She had an office on the 4th floor of the federal building on Spokane Falls Boulevard with a window that faced north, toward the river, though you couldn't see the river from where she sat. She communicated in the particular measured register of someone who has seen a great deal and is no longer surprised by any of it. She asked Craig and me to appear separately, then together. The federal building lobby smells like recycled air and institutional carpet. I signed in at the desk. I sat in the waiting area outside Ms. Osei's office with Barbara beside me. I had the folder on my lap. I had checked the contents twice the night before, and once again that morning. The folder was 847 pages. I had counted them. Barbara had her reading glasses in her coat pocket. She did not take them out. I looked at the clock on the wall. It read 8:47 a.m. I watched the second hand move. I appeared on a Thursday morning with Barbara and that folder. 9 years of monthly statements, lease agreements bearing my signature, maintenance records, contractor invoices, tenant correspondence, bank statements, expense logs, and the October account transfer record with its routing change timestamp. Craig appeared with his Phoenix tax preparer and no documentation. Ms. Osei reviewed the materials for 40 minutes. She asked me 2 clarifying questions. She asked Craig 6. Craig's tax preparer had a yellow legal pad on his knee and a pen he did not use. Craig had his hands flat on the table. He looked, I thought, like a man who had been confident about something for a long time and had just now, in this particular room with this particular woman across from him, begun to reconsider. Then she pulled both account records up on her screen, the shared account history and my new October account, set them side by side, and looked up. Mr. Rice, she said, I have a very specific question about who has been signing the lease agreements for this property. Craig looked at the screen, then at me, then at his tax preparer. My sister handled the day-to-day, he said. For 9 years. We had an arrangement. Can you describe the arrangement? He described it. He said, we had an arrangement. He said, she handled the operational side. He said, we split the income, which is what the estate documents called for. He said all of this in the same tone he used when he told me, in emails, that he trusted my judgment on the building decisions. Reasonable. Collaborative sounding. The kind of language that describes a partnership without mentioning that only one of the partners was present. As he described it, the arrangement, which had always been presented to me as an equal partnership, became, in the plain language of his own words, a structure in which one person did everything and one person received half the money. Ms. Osei listened. She typed. She did not react visibly because she was a professional and this was her job and she had seen this before. When Craig finished speaking, the room was quiet for a moment. I looked at the window. The gray river direction light. The flat Spokane February sky. I met Ms. Osei's eyes when she looked back at us. At the end of his description, she said, the return you filed claims sole ownership of income from a property held in joint tenancy. The documentation provided by your co-owner establishes both the joint ownership and her exclusive operational management of the property for the entirety of the 9-year period. The discrepancy between the returns is not a clerical error. I'll be issuing a formal finding. She looked at both of us. Do either of you have anything else to add? Craig said nothing. I said, no. Thank you. I want to tell you about the drive home from the federal building because it matters. Spokane in February is gray in the particular way of a city that gets real winter without the aesthetic payoff. No mountains visible from downtown, no dramatic snowfall, just a flat cold gray that sits on everything like a second ceiling. I drove north on Division Street and I thought about 9 years. Not the money specifically, the wait. A 4-unit rental property is not a passive investment. It is a second job that does not clock out. lease renewals and background checks and plumbing calls and the Felix drum situation and the woman in Unit 4 who locked herself out at 11 p.m. in November 2020 and the maintenance contractor whose invoices were always wrong and the insurance renewal and the quarterly inspections and Barbara's February folder and 9 years of the same spreadsheet, updated on the 1st of every month, without exception. Craig had received half the income from all of that. For 9 years, I had told myself this was equitable because he was a co-owner on the deed. As if being on a deed were the same as doing the work. As if entitlement and contribution were the same category of thing. They are not. I had known that for years. I had told myself I didn't. That is the version of this story I am least comfortable with. The one where I was complicit in my own underpayment, not because Craig forced me to be, but because asking for more felt like asking for something I wasn't supposed to want. I drove home. I parked. I sat in my car for a while. Then I went upstairs and updated the February spreadsheet. The IRS finding came in March. Craig's return was rejected. He was required to file an amended return reflecting his actual ownership share and the actual income he had received, which, for the months after October, was zero, because he had received zero. The amended filing generated a tax liability adjustment and a penalty for the original filing, which his Phoenix preparer was presumably thrilled about. He called me once, not to apologize, to ask if I was going to make this a whole thing. It's already a whole thing, I said. The IRS made it a whole thing. I just want to know where we stand. I told him where we stood. I had consulted with a property attorney on Monroe Street named David Yee, who had advised me that Craig's operational non-contribution over 9 years, combined with the fraudulent tax filing, gave me strong grounds for a petition action, a legal process that could force a buyout or a sale of the property.
I was not committing to that path.
I was describing it. You can continue as a co-owner, I said, under a formal property management agreement that compensates me for management at the standard rate, which in Spokane for a 4-unit property is 8 to 10% of gross rents. That agreement will be in writing. You'll receive quarterly reports. If you want to contest any expense, you'll contact me in writing within 30 days. That's, Tova, that's not how we did it before. No, I said. It isn't. Silence. Or, I said, you can sell me your half. David Yee has a current appraisal. The property is valued at $618,000. Your half is $309,000. I can arrange financing. More silence. I need to think, Craig said. Take your time, I said. The agreement is on the table through April 30th. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I stated terms, and I set a deadline, and I hung up. My mother called the following Sunday. She had gotten Craig's version, which I had expected. Her version of my version, delivered back to me, was that I had been sneaky and that family didn't do things this way, and that Craig was blindsided. He wasn't blindsided, I said. He filed a fraudulent tax return. The IRS blindsided him. Tova, you moved money without telling anyone. I moved my money into an account with my name on it. Half of it is his. His half is documented. He can have his half when he signs the management agreement. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I just don't understand why you had to be so ungrateful about it. He's still your family. I said nothing. I thought about 16 weeks of Felix drum. I thought about 847 pages of documentation. I thought about 9 years of the first of every month and Barbara's lavender hand sanitizer and the first of the year folder I built alone every single February. There was nothing left to explain. I had made a decision, and I had documented it, and at some point the documentation becomes the explanation. You don't narrate a building. You show someone the blueprints. I didn't fight her. I didn't explain again. I said, I love you, Mom. I'll talk to you next week. And I hung up. Craig signed the management agreement on April 22nd, 8 days before the deadline. He did not ask for modifications. He did not negotiate. He signed it and emailed it back, and that was that. I had expected some kind of message, a complaint, a question, a version of the conversation we were apparently not going to have. There was nothing. Just the attachment. Just the scanned signature page with his name at the bottom, The same signature that had been on the probate documents in 2015, the same signature that had been absent from 9 years of lease agreements and maintenance authorizations and insurance renewals. It was a strange thing to feel nothing particular about. I filed it in the property folder. I made a note in the spreadsheet. Then I opened a new tab and paid the quarterly water bill for 2219 North Ash Street because it was due. Property management agreements are not emotional documents. They are specific and functional, and they answer the questions that should have been answered 9 years ago. Who does what, who gets paid for it, what the reporting schedule is, what happens if someone fails to perform. I filed it. I sent him the April report on May 1st, the same day I had sent every report since 2015, except this one had a line item that had never appeared before. Management fee. $520. He did not respond to the report. He did not respond to the May report either or the June report. He receives them. They go into whatever folder or inbox he keeps them in. The deposits go to his account on the 1st of the month, minus the management fee, the same as they always have, except now there is a contract that says what they are and why. I have not received a single question about the quarterly reports. Not about the management fee line. Not about the maintenance entries. Not about the expense breakdowns that I have been providing in one form or another since 2015. He receives them the way he received everything for 9 years, without comment, without acknowledgement, and, presumably, without reading them very carefully. I have not spoken to him since April. Thanks for handling that. That is what he said in December, when I had spent 16 weeks on something he did not know existed. He meant it as a courtesy. I received it as a description. For 9 years, that phrase was the arrangement, one person handling things, one person receiving the result. That is not a partnership. It was never a partnership. I just needed it in writing before I could say so out loud. The spreadsheet had always been mine. That part had never been in dispute. The property at 2219 North Ash Street is fully occupied. Unit 2, where Felix Drum used to live, has a new tenant, a quiet woman named Annika who teaches at the elementary school 2 blocks north and who has never once been late on rent. She emailed me in October to ask if she could hang a shelf in the living room. I told her yes, as long as she used the right anchors for the plaster walls. She sent me a photo when she was done. It had 3 small plants on it and a book with a blue spine whose title I couldn't make out. I filed the email in her tenant folder and wrote a note in the property log. Unit 2. Tenant in good standing. No outstanding items. The building needs a new water heater in Unit 4. I have a quote from a plumber on Boone Avenue for $1,840. I have scheduled the install for the 3rd week of the month. Craig has not contacted me since April. I expect he will not, except in the ways that the agreement requires, which is to say, not at all. The agreement does not require him to contact me. It requires him to receive reports and respond to written expense disputes within 30 days. He has not had a dispute. The deposits go out on the 1st. There is a version of this story where I am the difficult one, the one who made a simple family situation complicated, who moved money without announcing it, who lawyered up over a tax return. I understand that version. I have heard it in approximately those terms from my mother. I do not think it is wrong, exactly. I think it is incomplete. Doing the work is not the same as owning the deed. Knowing that and acting on it are 2 different things. I did the first one for 9 years. I did the second one in October. I will note the water heater in the spreadsheet. I will note it in Craig's quarterly report. I will send him his share, minus the fee, on the 1st. That is the arrangement. It is in writing now, which is the only thing that changed and also everything that changed. Have you ever done 9 years of work in a shared arrangement and only asked for recognition at the very end? Tell me in the comments. I'm Tova, and I'm reading every single one.